I recognize the member for San Fernando East.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we're here to implement a simple amendment, but one that should be extremely impactful in the lives of many Trinbagonians, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We're here for the implementation of an electronic check clearing system in Trinidad and Tobago. The central bank, in conjunction with commercial banks, is considering the implementation of an electronic check clearing system, or ECCS, in Trinidad and Tobago. This system contemplates fully automated multilateral image and data file exchange among clearing institutions with electronic multilateral net settlement over the real-time gross settlement, or RTGS, system operated by the central bank. The objective would be to clear and settle based on the exchange of check images and thereby shortening check clearing times. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government has promised to leverage technology in terms of improving the ease of doing business within Trinidad and Tobago, and also to improve our delivery of services to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is exactly what this amendment is meant to do. Mr. Deputy Speaker, payment systems sit at the heart of our economy. They allow money to flow between households and businesses, business to business, and also business to households, allowing the prompt and proper exchange of goods and services. This government is committed to ensuring that this Twin Island Republic's payment systems are innovative, efficient, and effective, and that they meet the needs of end users taking advantage of technological development as they arise. Checks continue to form a vital part of Trinidad and Tobago's payments landscape, accounting for 25% of all payments made by individuals in 2021, and forming over a fifth of all outgoing payments made by sole traders, other micro businesses, and small businesses. Mr. Deputy Speaker, while there is no denying that there has been a decline in their use over the years, checks are still important for many receivers of grants, payment of income, small charities, voluntary organizations, and those members of our society who are often the most vulnerable. Before I discuss these new proposed amendments, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I shall briefly explain how the current check clearing system works. Under the current model, checks deposited into a bank are transported to their associated processing center, known as a clearinghouse, where the essential details are physically passed to the bank of the customer who originally drew them, and parties agree on the net amounts to be cleared and settled on the basis of the check listings received the previous day. Finally, the checks are taken to the relevant processing center of the paying bank, which ensures that the check is genuine before releasing the funds. Under that archaic system, it may take up to 6 working days before a check fully clears, and the recipient can be certain that the money is theirs. What this proposed new electronic check clearing system advances, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is a significant reduction to clearing times to 2 working days by sending a digital image of the check for clearing. Electronic check clearing system will also facilitate further innovation in the industry, for example, by enabling customers to pay checks through their respective mobile banking apps. It would seem a sensible modern improvement to the current system. This bill before us today seeks to amend and upgrade the legal foundation of payments, particularly check payments, and provide for its regulation and oversight. These proposed amendments will work in tandem with the legislation already enacted and proclaimed, such as the Exchange Act, Chapter 8231, to target, govern, or rather seek to address loopholes of the payment of money via check form, so that it not only provides a less time-consuming process for persons to pay by check, but to support ongoing innovation in local payments, while securing the future of checks. It is the hope of this government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that these amendments, along with further measures to be put in place as consultations and discussions continue, will create further safeguards for the electronic checking clearing system and not allow more efficient banking for persons, but also that it allows for its occurrence in a safe manner. With the introduction of e-check imaging, we will directly address the challenges currently facing the check system and continue to enable innovation to deliver wider benefits to consumers, businesses, and the banking industry, while ensuring that the electronic clearing of checks has no detrimental impact on check users. It makes provision for measures to achieve this by establishing a framework which will help to protect customers as the image clearing system rolls out. Through these proposed amendments, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the government identified 4 key benefits that electronic check clearing systems will offer to end users and the banking industry, and I list. 1, the speeding up of clearing times, which is most significant, Mr. Deputy Speaker. 2, increasing consumer convenience. 3, reducing operational costs. And 4, helping challenger banks to compete with incumbents. This is also extremely important, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because of course, with more competition becomes lower prices for customers. Under the current legislation, a paying bank has the right to demand that it is presented with the physical check before deciding whether to honor the payment. Pursuant to the introduction of the proposed Section 89A, Clause 5 of the bill, the government proposes to remove this right of the paying bank and to render an electronic check image as equivalent to the original where a check is presented for payment. This inclusion of Section 89B places the obligation on the drawer to present the physical check to begin processing of same and eliminates the burden of the drawee having to physically present the check to the bank for processing, a means of reducing processing times, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It will be necessary to amend the rights of the paying bank. Without this key legislative reform, financial institutions would be obliged to continue collecting physical checks from customers and to deliver them through the traditional paper-based infrastructure. The benefits of check imaging for the industry and end users would therefore be largely negated. Noteworthy, to safeguard this amendment, the framework established by Section 89A creates an added layer of protection which will address fraud through robust protections for financial inclusion and security. The paying bank will be able to request the paper instrument in exceptional cases, such as suspected fraud, whilst you do not have to physically present the check to the bank at first instance, should the bank require, based on their internal checks for suspicious activity, there is a requirement for physical proof of the check. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you see we have checks and balances in this process. These amendments seek to assist citizens to overcome barriers to financial inclusion. These measures, in unison, would benefit citizens living in areas without ready access to a bank branch, people with limited mobility, or people who, due to work or other reasons, find it difficult to visit a branch during banking hours. By enacting these amendments, providing recipients of checks with greater convenience in how they deposit, check imaging will cut down the time it takes for the payment to complete. We can agree that check imaging will reduce the risk of paper checks being misplaced or physically damaged, both before and after a customer deposits the check. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm reminded of a situation maybe a few months ago where my colleague from La Joquita, Talparo, opened the first ATM in La Joquita, and that was a surprise to me. But it was also a reminder, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the need for financial services and also access to banking services throughout this country, and that there are areas that would benefit from this improved electronic system. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as legislators, we on this side believe that these amendments provide a backstop to increasing the efficiency of operating the payment system will improve the sustainability of the check as a payment option that banks and building societies can continue to provide. For types of fraud and error not designated in these amendments, the position would remain as at present, and in the event of the paying bank or drawer suffering a loss, they would not be able to rely on the new legislation to make a claim against the payee's bank. The paying bank would still be able to consider making a common law claim in restitution or conversion, subject to the existing defenses. By clarifying the responsibility for losses arising out of particular matters, the government's approach aims to align liability more closely with each bank's actual capacity to prevent fraud and error. This is intended to provide each party with the right incentives to ensure that the system is secure and reliable to use. The government also intends that these principles will help agency banks and other sponsor banks decide which party should be liable for what is in their contracts. At present, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is not necessary to impose additional due diligence obligations, as the amendments are designed to be enabling measures and will not compel any financial institutions to start capturing images against their wishes, but the introduction of Section 97, Clause 6 of the bill leaves room, subject to future collaborations and discussions with stakeholders, for regulations to be drafted to work in tandem with the legislation to strengthen the operations. Any change to the legislation must not have the unintended consequence of discouraging paying banks from continuing with the rigorous safeguards they currently put in place. There are certain checks that only a paying bank can currently carry out. Therefore, the new amendments, particularly of that pursuant to the introduction of Section 97, Clause 6 of the bill, will grant the Minister and Central Bank Authority a power to make regulations to designate for the specific matters as becomes necessary. These clauses set out above will amend outdated provisions in the statute that currently prevent the banking industry from digitizing parts of the check payment system. Once these legislative measures come into force, all financial institutions providing check services will in effect need to have facilities or access to facilities allowing them to accept check images. And with that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I end. Thank you.